Hello YouTube, this is a really rare Holy Grail toy that I've wanted for such a long time. It's a 1980s Inhumanoids Tendril figure. Now he's got some issues, so if we have a look here, he has two fangs, which are this kind of fluorescent orange colour. You can see one of them is broken off at the tip and the other one is completely broken off. So I need to think of a way of making a couple of those in the future. In this video though, I'm going to be concentrating on something else that's missing, which is his tails. So if you look, he's a massive figure. He's really impressive. But actually, when I first got him, I was just going to mention this first. He had all of these black lines all over him. I don't know if they were drawn on with a biro or a pencil or something, but they were all in all of these little cracks everywhere. There were black lines. So it took me ages, and I just used cotton wool buds and just plain water and a bit of gentle scrubbing, and I managed to get all of those lines off. But here you go. These are the two holes where you can see his tails would have been, and the tails are really quite big. They stick out the back of him. But I've looked for this figure for literally years, and he came up once, and I think when he came up he was about £350, and I had the money at the time and I thought about buying him and I didn't, and it got snapped up really quickly, and then I sort of regretted not buying him, but I thought it's such a lot of money. So anyway, this one came up and it was less than £100, so I thought I'm having it. Don't care that it hasn't got tails, I'm just having it because he actually displays well even without his tails. You can stand him up, he's still massive, and I thought I'm going to make the tails instead. So I just started with some aluminium foil, crushed it to get roughly the right sort of shape, and I'm going to work on top of these using milliput. If you haven't used milliput before, it's a two-part putty. You mix the two parts together in equal amounts and then it sets rock hard in about 4 hours. The type of milliput I'm using today is called superfine white. You can see it's got a particularly smooth look to it and is obviously white. So here's a pack with the QR code on so you can scan it if you want to get yourself some and give it a try. So I've just done a very thin coat of this over the whole of my aluminium foil tails, and it's really just to give it that overall shape. And then I'm going to build up all the kind of bumps and things on the top of this and try and match it as closely to what I can see from, the reference material that I've got of the tails. I basically just took a whole load of photos of the tails off the internet from different angles just to give me the idea of where all the main kind of bumps and things are. I don't want to match every single bump completely perfectly because I think that would take absolutely days, a lot of work. I just want it to look like they're the original tails at first glance, and you'd have to look carefully to realize that they weren't the original tails. The handy thing, of course, is when this is on display, the tails are going to be at the back of him anyway, so they're probably going to be fairly hard to see, but it'll be nice that they're there. Okay, you can see all the dust from where I sanded the tails. Again, this is just to get them really as smooth as possible before I start adding the bumps. Right, here's the bumps, and you can see it's basically just like rolling out a whole load of kind of sausage shapes of milliput and then just joining them on. And this gives a really nice effect, and obviously the painting stage will be what pulls all of this together. But even at this stage you can see starting to get the right sort of shape and the sort of tendril look about it. So with all of those sausage shapes just kind of placed on, I just use a ball stylus tool like this, and I just go along the edge like this just to smooth it all in. And then that kind of rough texture that I'm making as I do this, that can all be smoothed away just using like a paintbrush and some water. And yeah, it really softens it all in and you lose all of that kind of rough texture. Okay, this is with the milliput stages all complete on the tails. So I've got the shapes of both tails, and you can see I've added lots of extra bits on. Again, it's all just like attaching small sausages and milliput really for all of the little pointy bits at the front. I've added a load of little tiny bumps as well. They're not quite as small as the bumps that I could see on the original tails, but they're pretty close. Again, I didn't want to spend like hours and hours and hours doing really, really tiny ones. So I just thought this will give the overall impression. My main thing that I think is going to make this work is the color matching. I've got to color match these tails exactly to the original Tendril to make it look like they are the same. So I'm going to be using System 3 acrylic paints to do all of the painting on this. Apart from I will do a bit of airbrushing and then I'll use Liquitex in my airbrush, which is like a liquid acrylic ink. Right, so I hope my camera can pick this up okay, but if you look, the colour of green that I've chosen for the tails is the same as the colour of green on the legs of Tendril. You have to bear in mind here that Tendril is quite a lot of different types of green, but I want this to look like the legs, and then what I'm going to do is add the colour of the body. Where the body meets the tails, it's a slightly different green at that point. And I'm going to blend, I'm going to make a new green, that one, and I'm going to blend that down into the tails, and then that will give a nice kind of transition between the body and the tails. So can you see here, that's the colour of the legs there. It's a brighter green. And then at the top and here is a slightly more olivey green. And I've just added that to the tops of the tails. You can just see it's a bit darker now at the tops of the tails, and then it gets brighter at the bottom. And you can see, yeah, the green on the bottom part of the tail matches the legs, and the top of the tail matches the body. And then all I've got to do is add some of the sort of darker green, which is slightly more, I want to say emerald green, but it's subtle. It's just kind of hints of it. I'm going to use an airbrush to add that at the bottom because they've clearly used an airbrush or some kind of spray to spray that green onto the actual Tendril in the first place. So I want to try and match that as best I can. Okay, the next bit was how do I attach it to the body? So I added some dowels onto the tail and painted them green as well. On the actual body, what I've done is I've just carefully superglued some cardboard tubing into this. It doesn't need to look pretty because you're not going to see it, but I wanted it to be easily removable. So if I have to, I can take those tubes out again. Like if I ever were to come across a pair of tails for sale on eBay and they were cheap enough, I probably would want to buy the original tails and add those on instead. But until that day, this is what I'm doing. So you can see here I've added that slightly more emerald green basically to the base of the tail and just a little bit up the sides, and it probably looks a lot darker on this video, but actually in real life it looks much better. Like you wouldn't know. Like it's I was like really impressed when I looked at them. I was like, how have I managed to do that? It looks just like it. So I'll put these on so you can see what it looks like on. So if you look carefully, you can see the olive green at the top of the tail matching the body. Then you can see the bright green matching the legs. And then you can see the emerald green, which is all over different parts of the main Tendril figure. So I couldn't be more pleased with how this turned out. I'm really, really chuffed with it. I did end up at one point, after I'd painted the tails green, I did end up spraying it with a lacquer, which made it too shiny. And then I sort of regretted it, but then I thought, no, I don't regret it because it protects the green that's there already. And then I painted the tails again a second time over the lacquer to make them more matte again. And that just means if I ever scrape the tails up against anything, they won't scrape through to the white milliput, they'll scrape through to green and you probably won't notice. So it was still a good move doing that. Okay, so I plan to do another video at some point on how I end up fixing the fangs or making some new fangs. So keep an eye out for that. I don't know when I'll do that, but sometime in the future. I've also just ordered a Metlar figure, and he has got a broken head. The clips that hold his head on are broken. So when that comes over from America, I will probably do a video on how to reattach Metlar's head. So look out for that one as well. And then I've just got to get Decompose and one other small Inhumanoids figure. I think it's Granite the Race. Yeah, I need to get him. And then that's it. That will be my Inhumanoids figure collection complete. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about this. I know like it's fairly sacrilegious and some of you toy collectors will be like, ah, you can't do that, you know, like that's not original parts. And I totally get that. Like I do feel the same, but I couldn't resist doing this to make my Tendril figure look complete, at least while I wait to try and get some original tails. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to see anything that I post up in the future. Catch you in the next video.